Do you guys have enough level on that?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Metalkast. I'm your host, Paul the Rog Rogney, and November of 2016 I had the opportunity to sit down with Michael and Robert Sweet of Stryper. They were celebrating their 30th anniversary of the release To Hell with the Devil. This record was their most successful to date. They made their presence known in 1984 with the release of Yellow and Black Attack. In 1985, Stryper released Soldiers Under Command. This is the record and tour that took them from church halls to theaters around the world. In 1986, Stryper released their groundbreaking release, To Hell with the Devil. This release spent 3 months on the Billboard charts and went double platinum. To Hell with the Devil spawned 3 singles, 3 top MTV videos, making them one of the most requested artists to be played. To Hell with the Devil was their most controversial release at the time and saw many changes in the group. First was the dismissal of longtime bassist Timothy Gaines at the end of the Soldiers Under Command tour. Filling in on the recording of To Hell with the Devil was bassist Brad Cobb. Matt Hirsch took over the reins as the band's new bass player, but ultimately was short-lived as Stryper decided to have Timothy rejoin the band. Although this record put them on the map, Stryper received a good amount of backlash from this record. First was the title, To Hell with the Devil. Second was the artwork depicting 4 long-haired angels throwing the devil into a fiery pit. Due to this backlash, the cover was later changed to a black cover with the Stryper logo on it. Most of the backlash came from the Christian community who did not want to see imagery like this or hear a title like this. Stryper has gone on to release 12 albums and continues to successfully tour after all of these years, which is a testament to the quality of this band. I had the opportunity to sit down with Michael and Robert Sweet to talk about this release, religion, and more. It's been 30 years since you released the record. So tell me, why is it right now the right time for a 30th anniversary?
It just seemed right. We did a 25-year anniversary for what? 5 years ago. For just the band.
Yeah, just the band.
6 years ago.
Okay.
6+ years ago. And that was the 25th anniversary of the band. So the 30-year anniversary to Hell coming up, we missed the 25-year. We didn't really think about it or put anything together, so 30 came up, it just made sense.
Yeah.
It felt right, we started talking about it, and once we started talking about it, it all progressed and fell into place. So it's kind of cool.
Well, I just want to focus totally on this record for this interview, so I want to talk a little bit about Stephen Galfus, a little bit, the producer of To Hell with the Devil.
Why?
Well, it's an interesting story.
Let's not ask about him.
No, I think it's interesting because your book, honestly, really gives a lot of insight to what was going on in the record. But I got to talk to you about your drum sound. So we talked years ago about your drum sound and why it came out that way. Can you talk a little bit about why the drum sound came out the way it did?
I just had a few disagreements with Stefan, but you know, it was only on a couple songs. The cymbals were gated really heavy, and I didn't care for it. But you know what I found out later was a lot of guys were coming to me going, "How are you getting that cymbal sound? Are you grabbing the cymbal after each hit?" I'm all, no. So I guess it worked out, you know.
Yeah, and Stefan too. I mean, in all fairness, I mean the credit needs to go where credit's due, and a lot of the times the tones that you hear on our albums is due in part to the engineer. And the engineer at that time was Dan Nebenzahl, and he's a really great engineer. Same thing with Tom Wehrman album, Against the Law, a guy by the name of Eddie. What was it, Eddie Delana?
Yeah.
Is that right? Great engineer. You know, same thing with all the recent Stryper albums. Danny Bernini. So, you know, big part, really probably 95% of the reason why the drums sound great on To Hell with the Devil is because of Dan.
Also, though, a lot of credit has got to go to Michael. Michael's a real stickler for tones. He's a big drum guy, you know, so he really enjoys EQing and sitting there and making this sound just as monstrous as possible. So yes, it is the engineer, yes, it is the producer, but I would say it's also Michael.
And we co-produced. We co-produced that album, To Hell with the Devil. We all, you know, it was a co-production. I don't think it got listed that way. But.
Well, so how did you develop the Stryper guitar sound? And that's such an amazing signature sound.
Well, when I was younger, I experimented with distortion boxes and pedals and whatnot. And then I wound up going to a few pawn shops, and I found a Lab Series head, and I plugged into it, and I really liked how it sounded, but it was solid state. It didn't have any real tube oomph to it, but it had a great tone. And I bought it and wound up preamping a Marshall with it, and then eventually made some boogies with that, and then eventually a Furman Parametric PQ3. which is what I loved about that head. It had a parametric EQ on it.
Okay.
So I was able to really define the distortion and control the distortion not post, and it was just, it created that Stryper sound. I always describe the Stryper sound as kind of like a Michael Schenker meets Boston meets metal, It's like Boston and Schenker on steroids, and that's kind of the tone.
I guess that's a good way to put it.
Let's talk about the album cover for Devil to Devil. It was so controversial. Talk about the idea of it and also the ultimate backlash on it.
It's funny, it shouldn't be controversial.
I know, I don't get it. My original idea was if there was a guardian angel assigned to each one of us, that's what's in the cover.
Okay.
That's what my original idea was. And then I saw the artwork, which I wish I had hanging in my living room. It was probably 6 feet by 4 feet, beautiful. And I went, wow, that's great. And each guy was representing something in that. Michael had a hold of the guitar representing the devil's hold on music, which sometimes, I kind of look at the music industry as kind of like the devil's industry in one way.
Okay.
I think so. I agree. I mean, look at the scriptures.
Yeah.
He was an archangel. When he walked, there was music. I mean,
he was the music man of heaven.
Yeah, really, pretty much. And so it makes sense for him, at least what we believe, to have a stronghold on music in many ways, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oz was, I think, pulling, bringing the devil down. Timmy's angel in the picture was pulling the pentagram off of him, and my angel was like shining the light down on him, So that's what it was supposed to represent, and I think that pulling the pentagram thing off is what got the whole thing so, quote, controversial, which is silly.
All the Christian chains that were carrying it, they were upset about that because the pentagram is being ripped off and thrown away, so it's kind of up in the corner. So the fact that it was on there upset them.
Okay.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, you guys got a lot of backlash, mainly from Christians. I never really understood that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, neither did we.
More so.
I mean, we've been as outspoken as one could be. If you listen to our songs, there's no way to even hide what we're saying, and yet other Christian bands of that era would hide it, and they wouldn't get the grief we did. So I don't know whether it was because we were the first band like this. We weren't the first band with Christian lyrics, but we were the first band doing it the way we did it.
I think that's what it is. I think it's because we were the first band to really Christian metal band to break out.
MTV, that kind of thing.
On that level.
Yeah.
Right.
So because of that, we were under a much larger microscope,
It was interesting. A buddy of mine who's on tour right now was actually rehearsing in the same building you guys were rehearsing on for this tour. You heard Robert sneeze, and you guys didn't say God bless you. So he posted it on Facebook. Do you guys still get that heat today?
That's crazy.
We get all that kind of stuff. We just posted something the other night. I posted something of me in a Snapchat character, and where it changes your voice, and I was talking. It had a crown made out of twigs, not a crown of thorns.
Yeah.
And I got ripped to shreds over that. And for two things. For the crown, thinking I was mocking Christ, which I, of course, would never do. And number two, because they thought I was celebrating Halloween, because it was the day before Halloween. Okay. And they just went on. And you know what I like to do a lot lately? There's a button on there called ban. I love to use it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I don't like all that stuff because it takes the emphasis off what Christianity really is. I get tired of people talking about side issues and the way you look and the music you listen to and do you go to this church or what about this, what about that. That's why I'm uncomfortable with it, because it just takes all the issue off Jesus.
You lose sight of everything that matters.
Right, and none of that matters. None of that matters. I mean, I like to hyper-focus on Jesus, but not in a religious way. And I find most of the time people are coming up to me asking me about Jesus, or asking me, well, is he real? Can you prove it? Kind of thing. So I love that.
If they heard us cursing God or shooting up drugs or something that really does matter, that's obviously against everything that we stand for, I could see them getting, in an uproar over something like that. But it's just funny, some of the things we have to deal with on Facebook. Yeah. But that's the society we live in right now. Everybody has a voice and an opinion, and they feel because there's a Facebook page that you can say whatever you want, and that's just not the way it works. you can't say whatever you want.
Right. So with Soldiers Under Command and Yellow Black Attack, you guys really developed the songs over time, refined them. But when it came to Tell with the Devil, you were under a time crunch to be able to create the music and record it. How quickly did you write the music?
I think the music was written, a few songs were written way in advance of the album being recorded, and then the rest of the songs were written maybe a few months out of the album being recorded.
Okay.
So it came together pretty quickly. Nowadays, the songs are written a few weeks out before the album is recorded. There's a weird way of writing for me these days, in the sense that the pressure of it helps me to write better and faster, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I had 6 months, I probably wouldn't write 2 or 3 songs.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have 2 weeks and the pressure's on and they say, okay, we need it by such and such a date, the pressure helps me focus and helps me to really kind of get them done and get them out there quickly. But back then, we always had more time for it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Stryper ministry. You know, I love how you guys have really defended your stance on Christianity and where you're at, and you're speaking more to the common person.
That was always our hope. I mean, we went out the gate. I mean, we're real musicians. We started as rock musicians. That's our thing. You know, we weren't these guys that were church guys trying to pretend to be into rock and roll music. You know,
We were rock guys who went and started going to church.
yeah. And that's, you know, rock and roll is our background. That's our life. That's what we've lived. That's what we've done since Michael and I were little kids, 3rd grade, 6th grade. That's where it started. But, you know, that doesn't diminish anything to do with Jesus. But, you know, it's a crazy world. We mix the two together, and it's real hard. It's a tough thing to do. But with God, all things are possible. And, and Stryper is an example of that, because it's nutty to do sometimes, and it's a tough world, and most people don't get it, and we faced a lot of discrimination.
Opposition from both sides.
Right. Both
Mainstream and the church.
Yeah. People just don't understand us. I think if they understood us, they would be so much more for us. I mean, there's a wonderful friend of ours, and Oz and I got stranded. This is an example in Chicago one time, and we ended up going to his father's house, his father and mother's house, and his father in the 80s was a pastor, and he didn't care for Stryper in the 80s. Oz and I were there for 5 or 6 days, and when we left, his dad was like, please come back. Please come back. He after that, he absolutely loved Stryper. I think if most people knew, you know, we're down-to-earth guys, and we're funny, and we, you know, have a sense of humor, and we're not what you think we are in a bad way, you'd love the band.
Let's talk about Against the Law then, since we're on the controversy. That record to me, as a Christian growing up, as a child, that spoke to me as one of the most Christian records you guys ever released. Because it was talking, how it related to me, with somebody going through a real life, dealing with real issues.
Right.
Why do you think the perception was different than that?
Well, because I think this is my opinion. Everyone has their own opinion, but I think the Christian base, they want their own to call their own. So when they had Stryper, for lack of a better way of putting it, you know, the goody two-shoe Stryper, you know, they held on to that. And then when we grew some stubble and started scowling and, you know, lost the yellow and black and, you know, changed our look a little bit and our sound and this and that, it was impossible for them to accept it. A very difficult, huge pill for them to swallow. And I think a lot of them, even though it's a good album, a lot of them didn't want to accept it. They were like, no, you know, and we got a lot of heat over that, and still do to this day.
Okay.
You know, some people like it, but a lot of people don't.
And the production is great. It really is. But before anybody heard it, I remember having a picture of us for that album cover and showing just the picture. He hadn't heard the album. And he said, why aren't you guys smiling?
We get that still, too.
Just crazy.
Yeah, I ran into you in the supermarket, man, on Facebook, and you weren't smiling. I'm going to pray for you, brother, you know? It's like, wow. Well, first of all, why don't you pray for me every day just because?
Right.
Second of all, smiling has nothing to do with it.
There were times when Jesus didn't smile. Jesus wept. He wasn't smiling when he was weeping, you know?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Here's one other thing an issue I have with the album Against the Law.
Okay.
And I've said this in recent interviews. I really like the album. It really is produced well. It really sounds good. But I don't know if you've heard me say this or not, but this is the way I kind of explain it. We have a certain sound. Guitar sound, vocal sound, songwriting style. Yellow and Black, Soldiers into Hell with the Devil, and God We Trust all established that. Like it or not, they established that. Then you got Against the Law. Totally different sound.
Right.
Imagine Van Halen, how much do we love their sound? Imagine if they made an album that sounded like Stryper, and we're going, oh my God, they changed their sound.
Yeah,
You see what I'm saying? Even though if it's great, I think that was a big shock value for a lot of people.
You just opened up a great point, though, that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to see, so during that era, you had Rat coming out with a different sound, Stryper came out with a different sound, Motley Crue.
Right,
You had Black
right.
Sabbath coming out with Dehumanizer.
Yep.
You had Dio with Strange Highways, and then you had World War III, who was the very first band on the Hollywood Records label that
Sure.
you guys were on. A total new sound. It seemed like a paramount shift in the hard rock community.
Right.
Do you think that was a conscious thing, or is that just kind of a reaction thing you guys were going on?
I think it was a conscious thing to a degree, maybe subconscious, but I think everyone was trying to change and find themselves, especially with the Nirvana grunge era coming in.
Yeah.
Plus, we had a record label. I don't know if they said it to you, but at the time, we had a record label saying you've got to make some changes.
Oh,
here.
yeah.
You've got to have a different look and a little bit of a different sound.
We got
Gotta
that
do
pressure
something
too,
different. So,
big
yeah.
time. But I mean, look at, you just named Motley Crue, perfect example of what I'm talking about. I mean, what a great album with Karabi, right?
it was
There's no
awesome.
denying that.
Yeah, it was
but it was a
fantastic.
flop,
Right.
comparatively.
Right.
Because people, you establish yourself, you have a unique sound with this singer, love him or hate him or whatever, in a sound, you got to be really careful messing with that. If it's successful, especially.
I think if Against the Law would have been our first record, it would have been different.
Probably. And that's why we're kind of going back to those roots of To Hell with the Devil and Soldiers on records like No More Hell to Pay and Fallen. And people are loving it. By today's standards, they're hugely successful.
Well, what's different today about the music industry, in your opinion? Now, you guys, again, To Hell with the Devil kind of launched a whole new level of your career, and it had to just been insane how it impacted your lives. How's that compared to today? I mean, what's the difference?
It's really different. Records don't sell today like they used to.
Okay.
That's a big one.
Yeah. I mean, he sold 100,000 in the first week. Back in '86, you sell 10,000 in the first week now. You know, and it's just going to keep going down. It's all about streaming, as we all know, and it's a little depressing. It can take the life right out of you. But, you know, you got to always remember, as a musician, being a musician is about creating. You never want to lose sight of that. And then when I hear some of these bands talk in interviews, like, oh, we don't want to make music anymore, I just think, wow, then why are you doing it?
Right.
Why don't you just stop if you don't want to make music anymore? I mean,
Well, what do you love and hate about being a musician?
Well, what I love about it is, I guess it was my destiny to do this. It is fun, but what I don't like about it is it can be really tiring. It can be grueling, especially when you're out on tour. But hey, that's part of it, you know. And certain people have certain expectations of you that sometimes you feel like you can't meet that expectation, but that's okay.
right.
You know, but
Being away from home,
yeah, that's a big one.
traveling, being away from home.
When I was single in my 20s, it was great. Now that, 30 years later, I have a family, a wife, and 4 kids, and 5 dogs, and I miss them all. So,
5 dollars.
yeah, 2 months now seems like a year.
Yeah, okay.
So, it's just
it's that's the brutal part of it, being away from your family, and your homes, your animals, your kids, all that stuff. Kids before animals, of course. I should have reversed that order.
You know what? We're gonna get pressed.
Should have reversed that order. Oh yeah, I'll pray for you, brother, on Facebook.
But your animals are kind of like your kids at times.
They
so,
are.
yeah.
They are like your kids, especially when your kids have moved out, and you've got your animals. But it's also just getting old, and you got to really take care of yourself, because when you start to realize, oh man, my shoulder hurts, and it hurts every night. It's like, oh gosh, it starts to become a bit of a bother and makes things difficult, or your knees or your neck or what have you. So that's a little different from the old days. We didn't experience that stuff when we were a little younger, but it's just, we still love it and have a blast doing this and feel like we have a lot of life left in us.
How do you enjoy yourself playing? And you're out of everybody in the band, you're the most visual. No disrespect.
I've messed myself up. I've bloodied my nose from hitting my nose with sticks.
Yeah.
Thank God I've never broke it. I've got a huge lump on my left leg from my fist hitting my leg. I've hurt my left arm, but hey, that's part of it, you know. I mean, I can't change what I am. It just goes on cruise control. I don't even think about it. So, well, you'll see tonight.
I'm excited, man. Let's talk about the development of your drum kits over the years. How did you get into starting to customize these kits? I mean, you did tube bending, you've hung stuff from chains. It's just been fantastic.
I don't really even know. I just did it. It was just something in me. I just wanted something different. I got kind of burnt out on seeing drummers as they were. Mm-hmm. I remember as a little kid saying to myself, why can't I see the drummer? It was always hidden. So I thought, well, if I get to do this, I'm going to turn the drum sideways and, hey, let's put some cymbals swinging from chains, and let's do this and let's do that. Each tour was just different. Each set I did was just a different thing. I would look at different gear and try different mics. At one point we went with the main mics all inside the drums, then which was great for separation and great for volume, and then we went outside the drums like many guys have done, back and forth. But just trying different stuff. Just figuring it out. I just love the drums real open. Right now I've got a 26-inch kick drum that's open, nothing's headed. But I just love the real big Bonhamy-esque kind of sound, if that's applicable. And just love to stomp it down and hit it hard and do my thing with it.
Robert, tell me about the setup. Again, you have an amazing setup. I can't believe I'm standing here. Let's talk about the cymbals first. You've been with them how long now? Stag?
Yes, I've been with Stag for 4 years. And I got to say, they're a great company. They're like an Asian version of Pasty, I would say, that tonal-wise.
Okay.
And I have to tell you, I've pounded these cymbals into the ground on this tour. Not a one of them's broken. Wow. Which I'm amazed at, because when he films tonight and you see footage of it, you'll see how hard I'm slamming down on these things. None of them are broken, which is truly amazing. But this is a smaller kit. I just did a deal with Yamaha, but this is a D-drum kit from that I've had for a couple of years. The guys at D-drum were really nice to me, and I decided to bring this out because of time restraints, and I just grabbed everything out of my garage and threw it together. So this is what I call a throw-together kit, but it's still pretty cool. So
you got an 8-inch? Is that a 10-inch?
I think 6, 10, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. And this one I think is a 14. But, I had 2 more snares, 2 more kick drums, and 4 more racks for this kit. And there were supposed to be many more cymbals than this. I think we got 15 or 16 up here. There was supposed to be more than this. But, I only have so large of a riser. I was supposed to have a rack system. I'd have more cymbals. But, I had to do this within a week. With the way everything went. It was crazy, I know. But I think it turned out great.
So you've been a Terry Bozzio fan for forever. Is that a carryover from being a fan of Bozzio?
Originally it wasn't. Okay? I did this and I love Terry.
Yeah.
Him and I did a couple photo sessions together years ago. I love Terry. He's awesome. He's the mad genius of drumming, But people have been coming up to me saying, did you get this from Terry? So I guess I did, and I didn't know it, and credit must go to, who it goes to. Like with me, I did the chains before anybody else did. Yep. I didn't see that anywhere. I was doing that in 1978.
Wow.
So yeah.
You were also experimenting with holes in the sides of drums. During the Can't Stop the Rock tour, we talked about drum customizing before Ocean Pacific came out with their drums. Or not Ocean Pacific, it was Orange County Drum Company. Remember how they came out with the drums?
Right.
Because you were experimenting with putting holes in the drums and seeing how it would modify your sound.
Yeah, I did do that at one point. I don't know. I don't know. I did do that. I just always tried to do wacky stuff. Just crazy things. Use weird seats and weird stands and hit drums in different ways. And I would say this is probably more of a conventional drum set, if you want to know the truth. It's good.
Conventional for Robert.
Yeah, but this is more conventional than what I would normally do. I'd have the gongs hanging where they were 3 feet away, and I'd throw the mallets, so it would spin back, and I'd catch it because it's weighted at one side. When it hit the gong, it'd come back at me.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So I'd catch it and hang it on the floor time. Yeah, it was great. I love all that stuff, you know. I used to pour gallons of water all over the drums and hit them where the water would fly up.
Yeah?
Yeah.
When did you do that?
During the To Hell with the Devil tour, like I'd go into double kick stuff and I'd have 2 gallons of water and be throwing it everywhere while I'm doing the double kick, and then when I hit the drums, the water would just, a crazy thing to do with microphones. That might have been why we went to May mics. It was great, so they didn't get ruined. We ended up loving them. They sounded fantastic.
Well, during that tour, you were using a timpani drum.
Yes.
You also introduced your octobans that you were using for that tour, and then you carried them over to the God We Trust.
Yeah, on the God We Trust tour, I had at one point, I had 8 octobans. They were all double-headed, and they were custom linked, and the longest one was 4 feet.
They were that long?
Yeah,
They were really
it was
awesome.
amazing. They sounded fantastic.
When you climbed up the pole to get to your set, do you ever regret doing that, having to climb
Never.
up? Really?
Are you kidding? I love it. That was great. I used to swing around and do the sideways, you know, stick out sideways kind of thing, and play, jump up, spin around, get back on again, play kind of thing. Any of that stuff that's non-conventional, that's different, I love it.
It's fantastic. Well, I just want to touch upon 2 other companies. You've been with Remo and Regal Tip for since the beginning, right?
Well, I haven't got to be with Remo. They're a great company. I've been with Evans, and they're all good, of course.
Right.
I don't think there's a bad head company or a bad stick company. Regal Tip has been fantastic. I've been with, you know, a few different companies, and they're just wonderful, wonderful people. They really are.
So quickly let's talk about another record topic, In God We Trust. Again, to me, it spoke to me so much. You really brought out the element of the dollar. In God We Trust. This nation was founded under the principles of God, and the freedom to actually have any religion you want to, or not even have religion. And now we have people who are, you know, becoming more. We have a country that's becoming more atheistic and more agnostic.
Yeah, people try to argue that now and say we weren't founded on that, and it's so ludicrous.
Well, exactly.
Insane.
Well, how do you think it'll impact our country if they take that off for a dollar bill, ultimately?
Well, it's happening now. I mean, God's being taken out of everything, you know, and removed from everything. So it's affecting our country and has been for years. It's begun.
It will lead to chaos. It will lead to a hardening of hearts and, you know, more criminal activity. I mean, if you remove what's good, you're going to get what's bad.
And I mean, you hear stories about employees that can't say Merry Christmas.
Right.
That's just sick.
Merry Christ Mass.
ridiculous.
You know, they want to remove Christ from everything.
So during the Deal with the Devil era, you guys were going to do, or the rumor was around that you're going to do a Heaven and Hell tour with Motley Crue. Was that ever true?
We didn't get to do that. I had asked Doc McGee. I met him at a forum one time. I said, "Hey, let's do a Heaven and Hell tour? Is Stryper open?" I think it'd be great. It would have been great publicity. Mm-hmm. You know.
Yeah, there's been talk of a number of Heaven and Hell tours, but nothing ever really.
Yeah, it never happened.
Wasp, Slayer, Motley Crue. You know.
I mean, it would have been our honor. You know, they were a much bigger band than us, but that would have been fantastic. We would have loved it. And you know, those bands would have realized, hey, Stryper's not so bad after all. They would have probably loved us.
The only band that actually agreed to it, and they were going to open for us, but the money didn't work, was Black Sabbath. They were going to open for us.
What?
I'm kidding.
Well, I hope you're kidding, because I'm freaking out here.
Most people don't know his sense of humor. You gotta say something like it's serious, and people will believe it. That would be awesome to open for Black Sabbath. I would love it.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Absolutely.
I want to hear about Tommy Lee though in the early days. I read an interview a long time ago. You thought that Tommy Lee was influenced by Robert.
Well, I made a comment that he may have been. I didn't say he was for sure. I just thought he may have been, and I took a lot of heat for that. People were like, oh, wow. It's like, it's very possible. We were playing in the clubs way back when, before Tommy was ever around.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Tommy came and saw him play.
And we went and saw them play. So we
we went and saw them play long after when we were in the clubs,
right.
early on.
We saw them in 81 at the Troubadour.
Right, we were
New
playing
Year's
clubs
Eve,
70,
1981.
78, 79, 80. So, I mean, it's possible. But Tommy, when I saw Tommy play for the first time, I remember he kind of had a similar style with his arms and the way he played and stuff.
And I thought he was great. I mean, I've always thought Tommy Lee's a great drummer. I mean, in my opinion, he was the guy that really added the power to Motley Crue. He was that behind it all.
Well, every drummer is.
Yeah. Well, I guess.
One thing that I love about you guys, you've always made being a fan of Stryper fun.
Yeah.
And you continue to do that with all these amazing releases.
All the stuff you can collect.
Correct, yes. And I
Sure.
still have the stuff. All these years, it's always been that important to me. It's
awesome.
fantastic.
I tell you,
So-
Enigma Records, they were genius at that. Genius. They would release an album on black vinyl, and then one on white vinyl, then one on blue vinyl, and a picture disc, and they just had that down. They were so great.
Yeah, well, see, I'm such a dork. I even got the Canadian issue of Soldiers on Command.
Yeah, very
Anyway,
cool.
so you guys made it fun to be a fan, so
Yeah,
thank you
that's
very
great,
much.
man.
But what's interesting is that your book really delved into your personal life, what was going on in Stryper, happened after Stryper.
Right.
Can you talk quickly a little bit about how life impacted you guys after Stryper, after Against the Law era?
It was definitely awkward, because I think everyone thought, myself included, that we were going to go make another album. And I just felt more and more with each passing day more compelled to leave. But I wrestled with that. I felt bad about it. I felt guilty about it. And I talk about that in there. But I finally woke up and made the decision and did it. And obviously it was a sad day. It was a sad day, but at the same time, in a weird way, for me personally, an exciting day, because I felt like there were new chapters to come and new days ahead for all of us. And I believe that if we didn't go through that, we wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. We might have stuck around for another 5 years or 6 years and imploded or whatever, whatever might have happened, and maybe never have gotten back together again. I mean, you just never know how life's going to work out. So I think there was a purpose for that, for sure, to get us here to this point.
And it was tough for me, because when you grow up and you do it as early as we did it, I mean, that's your life, right? That's what you know. But I also realized that when Michael left, and even though it was really hard, God in my life used that time for me to get married and have 4 kids.
Right.
Everyone always looked at me and went, he's the guy that's not going to get married and have any kids. I'm the guy who got married and had more kids than anyone else in the band. So God used that time, and now I got my family, so yeah.
Yeah, and see, imagine if you didn't have your kids.
We don't know,
It all worked out, and there was a lot of great things that came out of that. Some bad things, obviously. We were all, we went through some difficult times, and our relationships were severed for a while, things like that. But I mean, a lot of great things came out of it in the future.
So what do you guys recommend for somebody who's trying to change their life right now? How do you reach out to Christ? How did it benefit you?
Oh man, I would just say you got to take the plunge. To use the old cliche, you're standing at the end of the diving board and you're scared. You know that feeling? You're on a high diving board and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to do it. And you kind of pace back and forth, and everyone's going, do it, and you're scared. It's that feeling. You just have to just release and do it. And when you dive, you make that dive, God's going to catch you. Everything's going to fall into place. I mean, it's not going to be perfect. You're going to have difficult times, but God's going to be there through those difficult times.
I would agree. You walk by faith, and sometimes all you can do, as the Bible says, is when you've done all you can do, stand. And, nothing's easy. Just because you're a Christian doesn't mean it's easy. A lot of times it makes it harder. But then you get to see God come to your rescue. You get to see, and which in my life, I've seen it so many times where I can tell you I know there's a God. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because of what I've been through and watched it happen, where I've seen it. So
Yep.
you just look to the Lord, you ask him to guide you and protect you and lead you in the right direction, and then you go.
Life's all about taking that first step. And every day when you get out of bed, you got to put your feet on the ground. And that's what it's about right there. You can stay in bed all day and draw the shades, or put your feet on the ground and start walking.
Yeah, as a little
You know?
kid, you got to take that chance to stand up on
Yep.
2 feet when you're used to crawling.
Get on that bike and start riding. I mean, all those silly cliches that apply and that are so true. That's really what being a Christian is. It's taking the first step in faith and believing that God's going to, do the rest. But it's up to you to take that first,
Well, guys, thank you so much. You got to
Thank you.
get hopping, man. This has been a blast. A pleasure. You guys are amazing. It's been a big part of my life, as well as thousands of fans around the world. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.